Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in. We have an amazing episode for you this week. Before I introduce my guest, if you like this episode, please leave a review, follow, subscribe. It really helps the podcast, helps me grow the podcast. I can invest more into the podcast. The more reviews I get, the more we grow, and just make it a better podcast and a better experience for you guys. Also, don't forget, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, it's ROY_BNTZ. And on Instagram, it's ROYBTZ. As always, the podcast is available everywhere. So let me introduce this week's guest. Now that part is done, we can get into the episode. So this week I have Colin Landforce. Colin is a serial entrepreneur. He is the CEO of Unrivaled Brands. It's a leading cannabis multi-state operator, and it's a parent company of multiple dominant cannabis lifestyle brands such as Corova, Cabana, Sticks. These guys are doing everything. You should check out the website. It is unrivaledbrands.com. Super cool looking. And if you're in the West Coast, you can definitely cop them. I've been following Colin on Twitter for a while. He does like amazing tweets, just really the inner workings of how the industry works, both not necessarily only weed, but also just consumer packaged goods. So I wanted to have him on, and it was a lot of fun. We did a whole breakdown of how the industry works, how he got into it, what the regulations are, and what are the legal hurdles for cannabis companies. Are we still in a green rush? And it was a lot of information. I tried to ask as many questions as I could because I'm really interested in the space and I wanted to learn as much as possible. And he was great. He was awesome. He was just encyclopedia on, and again, not specifically only on weed, but just on branding, on consumer packaged goods. He's got a wealth of information. Let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Landforce. Enjoy the episode, everyone.
The Genuinely Interested Podcast.
Colin, how you doing? We're live, man.
I'm well. Thanks for having me, sir.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been following you on Twitter for a minute, and I love your breakdowns and the pictures that you post are ridiculous. So I was like, I got to have this guy on.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited to be here and do more stuff like this.
Yeah, man. So, I don't know if this is like the start of a good conspiracy theory, but today, Ned Lamont, just the governor of Connecticut, who just happens to be the state that I reside in, he publicly signed the legalization of cannabis. And I have you on as well, the king of the West Coast cannabis industry. So I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory or not, but it's a good start.
Yeah, it is. I have a feeling we'll have more and more days like that in various states across the country. Pretty much whether it's the first pass of medical or full rec or rec going live or something to that effect.
Do you know how many states it's legal already?
I'm not the expert on like the varying state legalization. I think damn near everybody's got some sort of program.
Okay.
Out here on the West Coast in Oregon and California have both had medical programs for 20 or 25 years. Whereas then California has been rec for about 2 years now. And Oregon has been about 4. Mm-hmm. So just about everybody's got something in place. And then they're very varying levels of legality or product categories, et cetera.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of briefly looking. It says 5 states fully illegal, meaning not legal, 19 states legal. And now I think maybe, I don't know if Connecticut is on that. So I think now it would be 20. And then the rest are kind of mixed between like medical marijuana, and all the rest of, I don't know, whatever other laws they have. What do you think? 5 years from now, it has to be federal, right? It's got to be. There's got to be like a tipping point where they're like, all right, there are too many states. This is nonsense. Let's just make this shit legal. Why are we playing around?
Yep, I agree. And with the caveat that I'm an expert on a lot of things in this realm. The laws are not one of them, but I definitely agree within 5 years, it'll fall. I think if we had a if we'd had the right president, in the trailing 4 years, it probably would have happened sooner. But either way, I think the barriers are definitely going to be falling. I think that's especially the case when you have these other, states in the South and on the East Coast going legal and really not able to produce the biomass that West Coast states like Oregon and California can. The Southern Oregon, Northern California is like one of the best climates in the world for producing cannabis. And when you're looking at Michigan, you can't say the same, or Connecticut in terms of full term outdoor, which is the start of a lot of CPG type products.
But isn't the majority grown indoors, or would that just be like bigger companies that can afford the warehousing, the cooling, and all the technical stuff?
I would imagine out there, it is pretty much all indoor, right? So what I mean by the climate, so Southern Oregon, Northern California, outdoor, one of the best climates in the world for it. And it's more so grade, right? This is agriculture at the end of the day. And so for us in our portfolio of brands, Sticks is the brand that has outdoor sun-grown inputs. And we think of it like our Bud Light, right? Which is very different from a top shelf, a premium microbrew or a top shelf liquor, if that's the metaphor of choice. They're just different.
Yeah. So you have you mentioned Sticks. You have a lot of brands. When I was looking into that, I was getting lost. I was like, wait, how many brands is this guy doing? Like, so
yeah,
I need like a little encyclopedia, like a Colin encyclopedia to break it down.
Yep.
But we'll get into that in a sec. But do you think I feel like there's a few, maybe like, I don't know, 5 years ago, there was this kind of green rush, right? Like it was all over the news, like, oh, all these like young entrepreneurs are getting into weed and it's a $1 billion business. And now it kind of seems to have subsided. And I don't know if there's ebbs and flows to everything, right? Like, I don't know, a year ago, crypto was all the rage and then it was NFTs. And it seems like there's a cycle to like these crazes. So do you think we're still there or it's kind of died down a little bit?
No, I think that we're in, I'm a big metaphor guy. I think we're probably in the second inning of cannabis. That being said, with how fragmented the markets are, right? So I guess for background, obviously not federally legal yet. That means it's up to the states, and every state governing body sits down to make some rules about how they're going to do weed, and everybody comes up with pretty different answers. So I can't remember where I was going with that, but it's super fragmented. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, like, I think you were just trying to like toe the line and see if there is, if we're still in this green rush or it's a.
Got it. Yeah.
We're in the valley, not the peak right now.
Yep. Sorry, it's noon my time and it's already been a long day.
You're with weed all around all day, man.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So globally, I think, like I said, second inning at best. But with every single state market developing, having their own programs and having different phases of legality, I think every one of these markets is going to have its own kind of like micro economics around each of these things. And so the bigger ones like California, which obviously we know is a huge economic force, will probably dictate the picture a lot more than like a small state like Connecticut will. But the forces at play are very, very, very variable. Pardon me. Yeah.
What were you doing before you got into the weed business?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong serial entrepreneur, and so professionally, leading up to this, that meant kind of doer of 58 projects and marketing, growth consulting as my like what paid the bills.
Okay.
And so. I spent a lot of time in regulated consumer goods, however that came about. So skincare, firearms, drones, and then I had an opportunity to basically come on board full time with the company that was at that point the drone client that I worked with, and in doing that, we pretty much took this brand 3D Robotics, which is now, they actually just got acquired, but now fairly defunct from a consumer electronics standpoint. We had an opportunity to take them from hobby stores to 2,500 retail stores globally. So launched into Best Buy and all the above all over the world. And then as that was trailing off, A couple of guys that I grew up with were just getting into weed here in Oregon. Again, this was like right before recreational was happened. So I think the timing was probably the laws had been passed, but it wasn't actually live. So it was all still in medical. Okay. And, as the story goes, at that point it was, as we say, flipping packs and just selling pounds to retailers, knowing that if the network was there, if the distribution is there, you can ultimately do anything. And so that was the beginning, establishing that distribution and that network, and then figuring out what the products were going to be, what the brands were going to be to go into it.
So this wasn't like an intention that you said was like, "Ooh, I really want to get into this business." This was just an organic unfolding of events that just happened to be weed.
Yeah, I think more or less. I've been around weed all my life. Sorry, Mom, but for me, it's for me, then and now, I'm a casual user. I've definitely got a lot more appreciation for cannabis, like being in it the way that I have. It's a pretty incredible plant. But there's definitely an element to me for like, I like consumer products. I like CPGs. I like brand. And I like building things, and this is the arena that we get to play in at a pretty good scale.
Yeah, it's a trifecta.
Yep.
So I mean, I looked at the website's Unrivaled, website. By the way, dope, like branding, everything, like the visuals. It looks great. Really visually like appeasing. You guys did an amazing job. But can you break it down? So let's see. So you have Unrivaled, right? And then you have Letterman. And then are there, I guess, any integration, any synergy between the two, or are they separate entities? And I think and you also have the pre-roll sticks, right? Which is a great name. So kind of break it down how those all work and if there's any connection between them. Yeah.
So Letterman is now retired from a brand perspective. We rebranded Letterman to Unrivaled, and so Unrivaled is our parent company, our umbrella, our platform for several brands in cannabis. A few of them are consumer brands, and then a few of them are retail brands, so retail stores. Corova is the 800-pound gorilla in the portfolio. So Corova has been active for 15 years, 20 years in California. Been on the shelves for since jump in medical and then rec. And made a name for itself with a 1,000 milligram black bar. So a edible with 1,000 milligrams of THC. And when rec regulation came along, you can't do that SKU anymore. Right. So back to the drawing board.
What's the limit?
In California, it's 100. In Oregon, it's 50.
So this was 1,000.
1,000.
Jesus.
So I mean, something I like to say is not all innovation is a new iPhone or artificial intelligence. Yeah. That really prompted a big pivot in the product line. So that spurred flower, pre-rolls, cartridges, all the above into what it is today, obviously. So Corova is premium, top shelf, and like I said, 800-pound gorilla. I think top 5 by the dollar in California. And really making some serious waves here in Oregon and some other plans for the West Coast. It's also active in Arizona and Oklahoma via a licensee. And then next up on the list is Sticks. So Sticks, like I mentioned before, is our Bud Light. It's a value brand. Tagline is good weed, right? Nothing crazy, nothing insane, just good weed. And I think that's really built on the back of consistency. That's especially early days here. You walk into a store, you buy a joint, and whether or not it's going to burn and be a decent experience is a total coin toss. And that's the origin story for Sticks, right? We started with pre-rolls to figure out how to make a really, really, really good pre-roll that was consistent, and Sticks is born out of that. So all the product lines there are in the value realm, but it's the full gamut. There's no edibles, but it's pre-rolls, it's flower, it's cartridges, etc. And then you move to Cabana, which is Cabana is like my favorite brand aesthetically. Okay. It's baby blue flamingo. It's the most expensive pre-roll in the Oregon market, and that is built on the back of just like super elite small batch releases with the best growers in the state. So this is flower that all tests, very high 20s, if not over 30%, with really fruity terps. We like to think of it as like food strains a lot of the time. So the cookies, the everything with fruity berry terps.
Who does the testing?
They're third-party labs everywhere.
But like, as far as like, when I
the testing.
When I used to do like juice, I had a juice company.
Right.
So we would like test the juices all the time where like there was a point one day because we would juice so many beets that I went to the bathroom to pee and my pee was red. And I freaked out. And then my wife was like, no, it's the beet. It's the beet. So who does those type of tests in your house?
Yeah, I think, that is more like you just described, relevant for product development. So the origin story for sticks and for us making, we figured out how to make a perfect pre-roll and we've made several million of them since. And so that began with testing, like you said. And for us, that was, if you think about what makes up a joint, which is obviously a very simple skew, it's particle size of the material, and then it's the density that it's packed.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, we imported a hop milling machine, an industrial hop milling machine that allows us to fine tune the particle size. And so we started with 3 different variations on particle size, and then we did some variations on density, and we basically ended up with 12 different 12 different joints to A/B test. And we sent out these test packs to bud tenders, to ourselves, et cetera. And just labeled anonymously, everybody's filling out forms, and it came back crystal clear. It's like, great, this combination this is how we make a great joint.
And was that based on density?
It was several things. So the variables that we had at play, besides like cannabis itself is a big variable, which is a tricky one, but density and particle size.
Okay.
And basically for us, we narrowed down a couple of recipes, one for sun grown and outdoor, and then another, which is fairly different for indoor, that's much more resinous and sticky, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Wow. Dude, that's amazing. Why not? And is this for branding? But why not maybe like have like everything under Unrivaled and then just make like awesome products from Unrivaled rather than do like different branding for each? Is that just a tactical strategy, or?
I've spent a lot of time thinking about that question. Both from the outset as well as here we are a few years into it. Like, was this the right approach? I've literally studied that stuff. And the only takeaway I've got is there is no way to do it. I think life would have been really especially after like diving in, and we've launched 6 brands, maybe one more than that. There are 4 today. One of them is like full back burner. So there's really the 3 that I mentioned. So we've launched and killed things, and through all that, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what is the best way to do this. And I think that, like I said, after studying it, there is no right way to do it, which is a frustrating realization to come to. Yeah. I think a lot of what you see in cannabis is the single brand with extensions into every single line, every single category, every single price point from that one brand. And my main takeaway there is like, that's not the way that it works in real CPG. And I think that passes now because we're in the infancy here. But if I go and buy Cheez-Its, right? I can't buy Cheez-Its soda and Cheez-Its cereal and Cheez-Its M&Ms. I buy Cheez-Its crackers, right? And they've got a few SKUs of that. Maybe they extend it here and there, right? But there's a lot of brands in cannabis that are, it's what I just described. It's like, do you want vodka or whiskey or beer or wine spritzers or wine or and that's not the way that mature CPG brands work. So to answer your question, life would be simpler had we done that. I think that what we did ultimately is a version of like a mature CPG house of brands. And the obstacle is the way.
Cheez-It soda sounds absolutely horrendous, by the
way.
Right? But yeah, I know, I get it. It's kind of like, when you go into like sometimes like Chinese restaurants and they'll have like 27 pages in the menu and like you don't know what to choose because there's way too many options. Yeah. And like, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, so you tend to go with what you know. That's what you usually, and I think this is true for everything. Like too many options And I think in the US, we tend to want to do this like, oh, we want to give the customer as many options as possible, right? Like have 1,000 SKUs. And I've been watching Shark Tank. I just recently started it. And that's something I see a lot of the younger, like the more or less salty entrepreneurs, maybe not, they don't know this as well.
Sure.
It just, if you're good at one or two things, like you said, and I don't know if there's like a golden rule. I think this can work as well and that can work as well, but it tends to, it's less complicated for you as an entrepreneur to have less and just make those things great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are many good books written on this, and in the same vein, I don't know. There's no right way to do it. Like Google CPG brand map. It's a zoo, right?
Yeah.
and that's that was my takeaway. And I think that for us, it becomes if you can really like back into a brand, if it's not just like, yeah, look, we made up a logo and then we put it on a product, then if there's a serious value proposition and a place in the market for it, then there's something to do there. And I think a lot of what you see, there's two big things you see in cannabis from the big operators are the one brand with 78 extensions, and then the totally fabricated brands. So like we paid a marketing agency and they identified this consumer and they made us a brand for it, right? And I think that's one of the exciting things about, that's something I get excited about in doing what we're doing. Like Kurova is the culture, right? Like, and the same is starting to be able to be said for the Sticks and Cabanas of the world, which are much younger brands. But like this was not born in a marketing agency last year. Like this is truly the culture, and I think that's the prevailing brands in weed. It's not the stuff that's spun up by an MSO. MSO stands for multi-state operator, which is a cannabis industry term. It's like it's the real brands. Yeah. It's the brands with community around them and stories and history.
Yeah. And I think like cannabis would be perfect for that, right? Because there's so many other things and so many other industries and CPG and tech, et cetera. We have massive companies come in, or that they've just been there for decades and they kind of control the market. Yep. But weed, because it's so new and it's like weed has always been a counterculture, it's perfect that someone kind of grassroots takes his company from nothing to something, builds, like you said, a community, and really lives, breathes, knows the weed, the industry, everything around it, rather than, like you said, a company that goes and says like, I want you guys to make A, B, C, D for me. I got $100 million. I'm going to start it in 5 different states. So it would seem like the perfect product for that.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. So what are some of the regulatory hurdles? Because now, the idea is great. Like we have that, but I'm sure there must be so many. So what are some of like maybe the regulatory hurdles that you go through that when you want to start and operate a weed business that maybe alcohol or cigarettes maybe don't have to go through?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the core of it is seed to sale tracking, right? Which is basically adds another ERP, if you will, to everything you're doing. Right. So
seed to sale is?
Like there are different states approach it differently. There are different software providers that that states contract to do it. But in Oregon and California, it's Metric, which is a product made by a company called Franwell. But it's literally just that it's tracking from the seed all the way through to the retail shelf when it's sold. And so all the point of sale systems at retail, ERPs in distribution and manufacturing. There's all software solutions out there that talk to that and do that. But at the end of the day, it's like a completely independent system that you have to maintain, inventory and all that. And that's definitely a challenge. But I think generally it's like, I think there are more regulated spaces that you can be in. There's certainly a lot of compliance to think about. I think a lot of it boils down to like security system, right? Like in the coverage that your cameras have and really like, the agency's ability to go and get that information from you and then really like tracking that in the system. I think functionally, day-to-day wise, the hardest thing about it is and will continue to be the disparity between the markets, right? We have so many components that are the same, but different. right? It's this one, but it's the California version, or it's this one, but it's the Oregon version.
Yeah.
That is just all day, every day, especially when you have 25 or 30 product lines. We want every component that we possibly can have to be agnostic of state, but there's just a lot of scenarios where it doesn't work out like that. And so now, ordering from the same vendor, but it's like, which version is it? And it's like, oh, we got it right, but then they didn't get it right. But the similar but different dynamic is the trickiest part, I think.
Are the two, because you have one in California and one in Oregon, is it because of the different rules that each state have, you have to keep those separate? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, a cannabis product in Oregon only exists in Oregon. So we could ship.
You can't ship it between.
No, we
two
can.
states.
No, right. We can. In the perfect world, we can have, here's a component. We use this component everywhere. We ship that component to the different markets, but then the cannabis itself is state specific, and then the labeling on it is meeting state requirements, et cetera.
I see. And as far as because I don't know what you guys currently do, but I'm assuming at least the beginning was probably an outside operation. And I know there's a lot of people that do that. Are there security hazards? They're shit, somebody could come in the middle of the night, grab everything. Is that something that, weighs heavy or not really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been more relevant than ever in the last 12 months.
Really?
I know that there was a big streak of robberies at the dispensary level, through everything going on the last year that was, I think, generally regarded as ignored by police. At least that was the perception in the industry. But you also have the cash element, which is less and less every day, and probably less than a lot of people would guess. But I mean, there's a lot of what happens in cannabis is something that is so entrenched in the black market, right? Whether it's the people or everything in between. That's literally there are people that are in legal recreational cannabis that are by the book and legal, who have been doing this for 25 years with varying degrees of legality to it.
Yeah.
And that creates, there's a lot of layers.
So I mean, is it banking issues? I mean, how can you open an account, accept transactions, sell online? You obviously can't sell, if you're in Oregon, you can't sell to another state. You probably only can sell maybe in that area.
Right.
But it's mostly cash business, right?
So I haven't ran the numbers in the last couple months. Off the tip of my tongue, I'd say it's half and half.
Okay.
So the banking is will get much better rapidly. There's a bill passed to basically allow for it recently, but we all know how long those things can happen. But it varies by market. In California, there's several banks that are in the closet about it, but have programs that are generally pretty aggressively priced. In Oregon, similar story. So there's a couple of credit unions. Really, I think everybody that I know of in Oregon is credit unions. So there's one in particular that openly has a marijuana program. And until, or probably still right now, if you've got a bank in Oregon in cannabis, I think 90% of those people are at this one credit union. And it happens to be the Marion and Polk County Public Schools Credit Union. Which is just a credit union that was hey, we'll do a program. We'll hire the compliance person. And it's $1,000 a month for a checking account and we'll take your cash.
Yeah.
And if you bring us cash that smells like weed, you get one warning and then you're hosed. So I think that
cash that smells like weed.
Yeah, I mean, right, because they process cash and then they have to go and be a bank about it, and so they take that piece of it super seriously in terms of contaminating is probably not the word, but. Yeah.
I wonder whose job that is, just smelling dollar bills all day.
Yeah, I think
this one. No.
As soon as they open the deposit bag, they know if they've got an issue.
Yeah, right. Would you accept or do you accept crypto payments?
No, I think I think crypto is super cool. I'm a big proponent of it. I don't think it's real in the real world yet. So I think there's been a bunch of coins taking a pass at like being a solution for that, but there's not any like meaningful business happening there.
Yeah, man. I woke up yesterday and I almost cried. I was looking at, oh, dude, it's all brutal. It's all just going downhill. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I love it. I sold all my Bitcoin at $1,200, I think. So I'm bitter and angry about it anyway. Actually, I'm not, just because I like try and ignore it so much, but I'm excited for like the actual use cases of crypto, of which Bitcoin doesn't really have one. But,
I mean, I'm like a late adopter of crypto. I know very little about it. Like I would not be able to explain it to someone well, but I'm on the bandwagon. I started buying a few different coins, and then I was like, ooh, Doge. I bought it actually pretty low. I thought it was going to go up. It started going up. It was doing well, and then fucking just crashed. And I actually thought the opposite would happen, because now it's on Coinbase and all these different places. I was like, ooh, dude, I'm killing it. A month later, the whole thing crashes. So it's very volatile, and I just don't get it enough to. I wish I would, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole nother conversation, but I'm excited for like functional NFTs. There's a lot to be done there, but that's a whole rabbit hole though.
What's the most popular product, would you say, in weed? Is it oil, cookies, or I don't know, something else?
Yeah, there's a very specific factual answer to this. I haven't looked at like, the most recent, I guess it probably would have been Q1 data. Mm-hmm. We'll be closing in on the Q2 data here shortly, but I think like the tricky part about that is by the dollar, it's going to be flour, and it's probably going to be flour for a long time, just because it's bought in the biggest by weight volumes and is the highest price from that perspective. So for us, it's flour and then extracts and concentrates. And extracts and concentrates include cartridges, right, that you have in your pocket and hit just like a normal vape, as well as concentrates that you put into a dab rig and are really for more of a connoisseur and a power user, if you will. And then edibles, edibles are a staple for us, especially with Kurova's background, with the black bar. They're also like really fragmented, and generally like lower cost. So, from a business standpoint, you can take 1,000 units of product X to stores every month. Edibles are a pretty low ticket, low impact way to do that. So, our focus is on flour and extracts, especially extracts going forward, and then filling in around it.
How much did you have to learn, man? Because I was kind of a pothead throughout. I mean, probably 13 years old, started smoking up until maybe I was like late 20s, and I thought I knew a lot about weed. And then I came to the US and I started seeing what they were doing here, and I was like, I don't understand half. I didn't know these products were even available or existed. Like, so maybe, I don't know, maybe for you growing up here, you kind of knew, but was there like a learning curve? Was there stuff that you learned when you were, starting out?
I think that like the nature of, the black or gray market beast is like, no, like nobody knew anything about this in reality, until it really was able to come into the light. Yeah. And that's one of those I mentioned, like, being around it, like it's truly fascinating, both from like I know a guy whose son struggles with some serious medical stuff, and literally the only thing that's ever done anything for him is weed, right? So the medical stuff is like is crazy, and that's definitely something that for me was a little bit of an eye roll, like as a high schooler or a college student. But then just like the science and the cannabinoids, and there's some really incredible stuff going on in the plant, and then there's so many variations in products for users. I think that the extract and concentrate realm is so vast. You've got everything from like the types of methods used to make the product, and then the output form factor, right? It's like you've got, is it BHO? Is it CO2? Is it butane? Is it solventless? Is it rosin? And then coming out of the other end of that, it's like, well, BHO could have any one of these 7 form factors, and that's based on the process, or like this optional product. Like it's crazy complex. I've learned a truckload, even though I'm not like overtly, in that technical realm on it, right? Like we don't today we don't run a lab. We don't have labs.
Yeah.
It's vast though. It's super complex, and it's an incredible plant. I think for me, the wow factor really hit on marijuana in general when I love Jack Herer, and it's like my favorite strain. I always have. And I was in a lab, and the guy handed me this vial of a little tiny bit of liquid, and he was like, "Smell these Jack terps."
Okay.
And I opened it and I smell it, and it was like an explosion of Jack Herer in your face. And it was like, holy smokes. It was like a droplet, right? And it's like, that's the compounds extracted from the flower. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Wow, man. Would you guys, I don't know, do you guys do any medical, or is just consumer stuff you're not really in the medical space as much?
No, I mean, I think like there's medical rules in the markets, which are mostly around like potency and like limits. But no, like we're super focused on real weed consumers. This comes back to something that I was saying before, and that like there are a lot of like kind of like fluffy, cute hipster brands that are attacking this like hypothetical market of people that might want to smoke weed. Mm-hmm. We are leaning into people that smoke weed, and like aren't super embarrassed about it. Right. So like, we are the users, right? Yeah.
So do you guys, how do you sell? Is it direct to consumer? Do you have, I think you guys don't have like physical shops, but I'm assuming you probably sell to retail across California and Portland. Sorry, in Oregon.
So we have 3 retail stores. One in Southern California, 2 in Northern California. We are acquiring a Sacramento-based delivery service. That was announced a couple weeks ago. That's going to be probably a couple months before close.
Nice.
And then, but most of by volume, most of the business is B2B to retailers. So we have a network of, depending on the month, anywhere from, 700 to 1,000 retailers that we sell into up and down the West Coast. And that's the bulk of it.
Okay, nice. And as far as, this is fascinating, man. There's so much I'm learning. The THC, is it like a standard that is set across all the different SKUs, or like can maybe flower have a different THC than oil to a different THC than, I don't know, a different product? Like, is there a level or is there a cap that they can put?
Yeah. So the annoying answer to that question is right. It varies.
Okay.
But on flower and oil, like those generally, like they are what they are. You go and grow some flower, you send it to the lab, it's got THC in it, they tell you how much. Where you see limits are on edibles, right? Yeah. And that's because like
those fucking edibles. I'll tell you a short, super sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good.
Maybe like 4 years ago, a friend of mine, we had a coffee shop downstairs, and the lady there, she would make cookies, right? Like edibles. And one day, and he would always eat them, but this was I've had maybe edibles twice, like in Amsterdam, right? And I had like the whole thing, and it didn't do too much. And I was like, I'm like, I'm immune. I'm strong. I can take this. I had half a cookie. He gave me half a cookie. I shit you not. I was hiding under my bed. I thought like aliens were coming to abduct me. I was so paranoid. I was like high, like really high for like 6 hours. So I'm like, does this come with like a little booklet nowadays that they tell you like how much you should eat? Because it can't be too much.
Yeah. Edibles are the category where like that experience is is like one that, should be avoided.
Yeah.
And so edibles are like where those kind of edibles and drinks, which are like, in the same or similar category, kind of depending who you ask or depending on the regulation.
Yeah.
But those are a place where it's like, our gummies like don't taste like weed. They taste like a gummy that you bought at 7-Eleven, but there's THC in them. So that's where those type of limitations are. So in Oregon, a recreational dose is 5 milligrams. The most a package can have is 50. In California, it's 10 and 100.
Okay.
So even in Oregon, like a single piece 50 milligram edibles are super popular. They all come with a cut chart that says like, great, it's one piece, but one dose is actually this size piece, and you're supposed to cut it, et cetera. But edibles are the place where that can get problematic.
Dude, I'm telling you, there's like, cause I'm sure, I don't have to tell you, but it's one of those things where I'm like, dude, this should definitely come with a cap, with an explanation, with something on the package telling you, hey, you should not exceed this limit of X amount. Because with weed, like it's like you can only smoke as much as you smoke, but this, you're like, oh, this is nothing. And if you don't know, you can just keep eating it, and then 2 hours later, you're gonna have a hell of a night.
The tricky part about that too is that like, there is no answer to that. It like varies by person, and by tolerance. So, a lot of our packaging says, you can always you can't eat less, you can always eat more, right? On the edible SKUs, and that's the case because 5 milligrams to me is very different from 5 milligrams to you. And a lot of our customers, 5 milligrams doesn't make them blink. Right.
Yeah. Well, you build a tolerance as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you kind of pinch yourself sometimes? Like you're in a room with like kilograms and kilograms of weed, something that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you'd go to jail for. And now it's a business. Like you're making money off this.
Right. Like you just said, it's a business. The pains and the struggles and the challenges that we overcome are like largely surrounding like making widgets and taking widgets to brick and mortar retail and quality control and these types of things. So there's definitely some moments of how did we get here, but generally speaking, the tough parts and the fun parts are our business, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bit surreal at times,
What are some of the drawbacks and maybe also benefits of growing indoors versus growing outdoors?
Yeah, like we touched on earlier, it's just different. I'm trying to think of another parallel, but it's like
one maybe like a faster life cycle or grows faster.
Yeah,
or...
No, it's the same. Like think about it like this. Indoor, you get premium product from indoor because you have perfect control of the environment. Okay. Right. Outside, you don't, because you're outside. You have, whether it's bugs or rain or the sun, it was, more cloudy than usual for the last 2 weeks of the flower cycle. You have all those kind of things. And that's literally like, that's the difference. So I think that like, from you hear people that are like a little bit less savvy, might poo-poo on outdoor, right? And it's like literally, like I've seen beautiful outdoor flower. It's never going to be as light green and as resinous as indoor flower because it was grown outside.
Yeah.
Just like and in that vein, you have some imperfections in it sometimes, like you do with agriculture, like, just like when I bought a thing of strawberries for my daughter at the store last night, there's going to be a couple strawberries in there. They're a little bit ugly. I might cut the tip off one because I don't want her to eat that. And like, that's part of agriculture, especially outdoor agriculture. You probably get that a lot less on, the big automated tomato greenhouses that are greenhouses that aren't outside, but it's agriculture in a lot of ways.
So is the trajectory starting out, as a struggling entrepreneur, you grow outside because it's probably cheaper, I'm assuming. And And then as you grow and as you scale, you kind of move your operation indoors so you can control it better. Or is that not the?
No, it's categorically different, right? It's like, when Anheuser-Busch goes to make Bud Light, they're not trying to make Sam Adams, right? Or that's it, right? It's Bud Light because millions of people a year buy truckloads of Bud Light from them, and it's just different. And with that, like there's different methods, there's different techniques, there's different, and a amazing indoor grower is not necessarily an amazing outdoor grower because they're so different.
I see. Do you have people like reaching out to you, asking you for advice on how to get into the weed business and stuff like that? Perhaps not realizing, because, a lot of people, weed is a passion project, and they maybe don't realize that it's a business just like any other business, if not actually harder than some other business and some other entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah, I think it's way harder. It's way harder for a lot of reasons, but all the time. And I think that like the unfortunate part about that is like a lot of those folks probably weren't going to pursue anything easy or hard, but I still try and engage with it. I've written a decent amount about this, both from like, rough outline of like what it's going to take to actually do that, because I get so many questions about it. But from a like opportunity standpoint, I think that the metaphor with the gold rush is a perfect one, right? And they say that the gold miners didn't get rich; the people that sold them the pans and the Levi's, they got rich, right? Yeah. And I think that for someone like interested in the industry that wanted to do something, that's what I always recommend. Like doing any service business. Or any B2B business that's niched in to cannabis is like a great play. Like we're preparing to move our Portland facility. I've worked with everybody that does cannabis security in the greater Portland area. Okay. And I think all I can say is like, it's a huge opportunity for somebody that wants to like really do a business and like provide great support and great service. Like just being like, hey, we'll be the security folks in cannabis, or we'll be the contractor. We'll build your walls for cannabis. Yeah. Or we'll design agency marketing for cannabis, right? Like when you, any of those services, when you niche down now, as a customer, I don't have to pay you to like learn what I do at all, right? You already know.
Yeah. Well, it builds an ecosystem, right? It builds other businesses around it, right? Now you said like, I don't know, from the people who have to deliver the money to security to, I don't know, lights or agriculture, whatever you guys need. I remember I saw, where did I see this? I forget which state, but they were actually, it was like somewhere in the Southwest, but it was, they were asking these weed entrepreneurs to actually come to these areas because they were providing so many jobs. And they were like, we'll give you this space, for fairly cheap. Just come, like bring the cannabis here. And they were, thousands of jobs they created from this, from like 4 or 5 different factories in that area, all in one area.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
so much
I think,
opportunity.
Yeah. And the job creation is a big one. I think that's why even you see like more conservative, counties start to adopt things, is because it's like, there's a truckload of jobs here. It's a mass, like I said, it's first or second inning. Yeah. We're just getting started. There's tons of jobs.
Do you think for the banks, is it like a federal thing? Do you have like an actual regulation where they can't accept, or is it just, we don't want to be associated with drug money, therefore we're not going to accept that?
Yeah. So again, I'm worried to speak too much to it because I don't know how banking regulation works. But I know that the gist of it is like banks are FDIC insured, and you're probably not FDIC insured if you're touching weed money. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's like at the surface there's that, and I think it's more things like that. Like we didn't. There's also like payment processing, Visa, MasterCard, American Express. They won't let cannabis put their money through their pipes, right? Like the credit card solutions for retail are hilarious workarounds to like get hands on them. I mean, a lot of them are like crypto based, right? So it's like you're the consumer, you walk in, you do like a one-time password to verify your ID. And then now you do this thing where it charges your card and it's depositing a balance into your account of crypto. And then you make the purchase, and then that crypto is transferred to the store. It's crazy. And I think, for us, it's always like about the customer experience. It's brutal to pay with a credit card in cannabis.
Dude, I can imagine. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Especially I feel like there's so many scammers right now with all this different stuff. Like even for me, like maybe a month ago, I had some crypto money in Trust Wallet, all stolen. I was sitting there. They took like, I don't know exactly how much, but a good amount of money out of and I'm just sitting watching TV and I literally see the thing like, because they were sending me like notifications of money sent out of the account. So I'm just sitting there like watching my money fly out of the thing. Yeah.
That's crazy.
There's way too much scams. What are you going to do? Colin, man, this was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You are helping break the seal on me doing podcast stuff. I really appreciate it. I hope to do more in general and maybe do this again with you.
No, you're great, man. And you're also great. I forgot to mention on Twitter. Like I love your breakdowns. You're super funny on Twitter. Is that like something you're, again, active, like trying to be like active on Twitter more, or just like you love the platform and it's just free flowing?
Yeah, no, I definitely have been putting some energy in over there. I think for about 6 months now. And I, like a lot of people, like I've been on Twitter for 10 years or whatever. And just kind of had this moment of wanting to make content and go connect with more people. I think I get out of it exactly what a lot of people get out of it, which is just being able to talk about the things that are interesting to me and meet people that also think those things are interesting and all that good stuff. So yeah, definitely been making a concerted effort over there.
No, it's great. I'm actually the same. I was on it for a long time. Never really used it. I actually kind of hated it. I thought it was like net negative overall. But I started following the right people. I started engaging with the right people, and I've done a complete 180 on Twitter. I actually think it's actually net positive if you follow the right people. You can learn so much in different industries, and you can connect with great people. It's an amazing tool if you know how to use it. If you use it right. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, the way that communities kind of like form and happen on there is pretty incredible. And for me, I just decided to pour some energy into it and make the investment because I wanted to do that kind of thing. When you look around at the landscape of social platforms, like Twitter's not going anywhere, you know. And if I was going to put some energy in somewhere, I didn't want it to be into like an Instagram that's going the way of the dinosaurs. Yeah. So Twitter it was.
And I mean, you found your niche. I think like I can't think like you're my go-to guy for like CPG weed stuff. Like there's no other person that I can think off the top of my head. Now that I think of that thing, like I think of you and like I go and I'll be on your Twitter. There's no other person that does that. So you found like a cool niche, man. And like you're killing it. So
thank you. I think you just defined it about as loosely as it's defined, which is like CPG, weed and building stuff. And I've been trying to figure out exactly what it is.
You're good at all those things.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I've been trying to like, niche down and hone in, and it's not really the way that I'm wired. So I'm trying to kind of find my way by not doing that, but also finding some levers to pull and some buckets to do content. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, definitely. Let's do some plugs. Where can people find you and your brands, everything?
Yep, definitely. So for me, it's just Twitter. That's all we care about. My last name is Landforce. That's my real last name. So my Twitter handle is just Landforce, LANDFORCE. And for the brands, our company is Unrivaled. So handle is Unrivaled Brands. Domain is Unrivaled Brands. And Corova is the big one. If you're on the West Coast, go to your shop and ask for Corova and tell them to get their shit together if they don't have it.
Guys, go check it out. Go check Colin out. He's awesome. And Colin, thanks so much, man. I had a blast today.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, bud.